Right before that colossal typhoon slammed into town, my folks booted me out of the house. They claimed it was because they were worried there wouldn't be enough grub for everyone. Having me around meant extra bellies to feed, which would leave my brother, his missus, and their kids starving. The typhoon hit hard, sweeping me away and smashing me on the street before I even got the chance to claim that $1 million lottery ticket I'd been lucky enough to hold. When I came to, I discovered I'd been thrown back in time to 5 hours before the storm's arrival. Before they could even boot me out a second time, I offered to pack up and leave. My parents lavished praise on me for being level headed, while my brother and his wife thought I was pretty sharp, and my nephews just snickered, calling me naive. What they had no clue about was that when the typhoon finally hit, their creaking old house would come crashing down into rubble. When I opened my eyes once more, I was lying safe and sound on my own little cot, the agonizing pain mysteriously gone. It hit me then. I'd been granted a do-over in life. I rifled through my backpack, heart pounding with relief when I saw that hidden lottery ticket was still there. Clutching it tight, I couldn't help but cry tears of joy as memories of my previous life came flooding back. In that former life, the weather report had warned that the superstorm would make landfall near our town at about 7 p.m. That very afternoon, my parents unexpectedly insisted I drive over 4 hours out to the countryside to take care of my grandparents. With typhoons being notoriously unpredictable, such a long trip was downright suicidal. I refused and demanded the truth. That's when my mom, with a heavy sigh, admitted that she and dad were genuinely scared of not having enough food at home. With supply lines cut off by the impending typhoon, they were terrified that my brother's family might end up starving. It was hard to swallow. Just the night before, after my mom's urgent call for help, I had risen early, stocked up on vegetables, meat, and fruit in the city, then spent over 2 hours on a bus to deliver the goods. Everyone had been all smiles upon receiving the supplies, only to flip and insist it still wasn't enough, and then decide I needed to leave. No matter how much I pleaded, they wouldn't budge. Even when I promised to only sip water and keep my grub to myself, they shooed me out when I wasn't looking and slammed the door behind me. I banged on the door, screaming until my hands hurt and my voice turned hoarse, but no one answered. All I could hear was my dad's voice saying, "Life and death are fated, and misfortunes are in heaven's hands." They figured with no transportation on the roads, I'd be on my own in that typhoon. Dying once taught me that this family was full of ungrateful people who didn't deserve my sincerity. Later, amid howling winds and pelting rain, I was tossed high into the air, slammed against a coconut tree, and met a gruesome end. To my bizarre relief, after that death, I found myself floating up above and witnessing their makeshift house crumble entirely under the typhoon's wrath into nothing but rubble. Seeing that, I finally felt I could let it all go. As I mulled over all this, I checked the clock. Just under 5 hours until the storm would strike again. I decided then and there to ditch that perilous house immediately. Even if they hadn't kicked me out, I wasn't sticking around for their sake. I packed up my lottery ticket, Idaho, and bank cards, threw in a couple of clothes, and headed out. "Hey, Mom, Dad, Max, and everyone else, I'm stepping out for a bit," I announced. My sudden appearance hushed the room. Acting like I hadn't heard them planning my ousting, my mom asked, "Tess, you're up already. Didn't you stay up late last night? With the typhoon coming, you're heading out now?" I grinned and replied, "Didn't Grandma and Grandpa mention they weren't feeling too hot in the group chat yesterday? Since the storm's so close, I'm planning on sticking around in the countryside for a couple of days to look after them." At that, everyone visibly relaxed. Still, my sister-in-law, who was usually all suspicious, piped up, "Aren't you worried about running into the typhoon on the way?" My eldest nephew, Milo, who was busy gaming, mumbled without even looking up, "Idiot." As always, no one paid much mind to his cheeky comment. I shrugged it off and explained, "Nah, it's early days. With so many of you staying in, I'm more worried about food and water shortages during the storm. And with everything closed down, it's best I stay with Grandma and Grandpa since they're fewer in number. That way, there's more to go around for everyone else." Their faces softened. Mom even held my hand and smiled. "Tess, you really are a thoughtful one." Dad took a long drag on his cigarette and nodded approvingly. Well raised, you've shown some sense today. Only my second sister-in-law scoffed, whispering to her husband, "She's just an outsider. Good, she knows her place." I ignored her snide remark and turned to my brother. "Hey, Max, can I borrow your van? There aren't any buses out there now." My sister-in-law's face darkened immediately, so I quickly added, "Oh, I heard Uncle Theo's orchard had an awesome harvest and the pigs are nearly market ready. I just got my bonus, so I'll bring back some extra fruit and fresh meat." That brightened her expression, and my brother handed me the keys with a grin. "If you need the van, no problem. Just make sure to load it up with meat. Don't worry too much about the fruit." I promised to do so, grabbed the dog carrier, and headed down the stairs. Milo finally looked up from his game and shouted, "Stop! Don't take that dumb mutt, Zeke." My second nephew, Jay, rushed over and tried to push me to grab the carrier. "It's our pet. If you take him, I'll tell Grandpa to rough you up." Even my fourth nephew, usually glued to his phone, chimed in, "Yeah, Tess, leave Zeke alone, Rich. Our dog. If you do, he's our dog slave, and you know what that means." I could tell their banter was half joking, half real. I replied coolly, "Look, y'all never wanted to pay for Rich's shots anyway, and if you eat him, you might catch rabies. Keeping a dog around in a typhoon is just extra hassle. I'm taking him to Grandma and Grandpa's place to guard the house." This time, even my second sister-in-law agreed. "Yeah, take that smelly dog. I think Jay might be picking up fleas from him." She gently restrained Jay and signaled for me to head out with the dog. Milo tried once more to snatch the carrier, but Mom and the sister-in-law held him back. "Same stinkin' mutt, don't worry about getting sick," she scolded. "And Tess, if you take him out, don't bring him back all germy," Mom grumbled. Amid all the chaos, I bolted out the door with Rich. As I left, Jay hollered, "Fool, you're gonna get blown away with that dead mutt." That nearly made me lose it, but then I looked back at the house and felt all my anger just melt away. I even shot Jay a knowing smile, thinking, "Hope you keep yapping just as much when the storm hits." Once in the van, I set Rich's crate down and gave him a reassuring pat on the head. "Yo, my Rich ain't sick. He's the best little pal ever." Rich seemed to get it. His eyes sparkled with excitement like he knew we were finally breaking free. In my previous life, when I was left out in the cold, Rich was the only one at home barking like crazy, begging for someone to rescue me. Milo and Jay, those little terrors, nearly beat him up and even tried to torch his fur with a lighter. But Rich didn't care about the burns. He leapt from the balcony, limped over to me, and stayed by my side. Sadly, that typhoon was so brutal that he'd been swept away and killed on the street. This time, there was no way I'd ever abandon him. We drove off in a beat-up van toward the city. I wasn't about to risk a dangerous trip to the countryside to see my grandparents. Not only was the journey long and treacherous, but their little house probably couldn't stand a chance against the storm. My dad always bragged about being the eldest grandson, yet he dumped the duty of caring for our grandparents on me, their least favored granddaughter. It's a twisted version of filial piety. Like our whole family, I have 4 brothers, but none of them ever came through when needed. The van rumbled to the outskirts a couple of hours away where the air was stifling hot despite the looming typhoon, the sky painted in eerie purplish-red hues. At that point, flights were grounded and trains had stopped, leaving no other escape route. I didn't go back to the old teacher's dorm. Instead, I found a 5-star hotel that even allowed pets, swiped my credit card, and booked a room for the week. The hotel was renowned for its resilience against high-level disasters, having earned global awards, and its location, nestled near mountains and away from the sea, made it one of the safest spots in the city. I specifically asked for a suite on a lower floor to feel extra secure. After all, no one understands the raw power of a typhoon better than me. Once checked in, I spent a small fortune hiring a runner to stock up on food, drinkable water, and supplies for Rich and me for the next few days. After the storm passed, I'd cash in my lottery winnings, and these expenses wouldn't even matter. With everything prepped, I treated myself to a nice bath. Rich got one too. I filled a bathtub with water as a backup and charged 10 power banks to full. Gazing out the window, I saw the typhoon drawing nearer, wind whipping the branches and tossing all sorts of lightweight junk around. Dark clouds rolled in against a surreal twilight backdrop, hinting at the immense destructive power. Outside, hardly anyone was around. Sensible folks had already retreated home to brace for the worst. I cuddled with Rich, charged my phone, and played some games. Strangely enough, despite the looming terror of the typhoon, I felt the most at peace I'd had in ages. Living with a family like mine was suffocating. Though my mom always tried to brainwash me into thinking our family wasn't sexist, she once joked about having aborted me since there were already 4 boys. I later discovered the ugly truth when Dad got drunk and spilled the beans. Apparently, my birth was an accident. The fortune teller had predicted 5 sons. And thanks to some messed up ultrasound results, I ended up here instead. Dad casually mentioned I'd owe the Hamilton clan a son forever. Absurd, right? My whole life started off feeling like one giant cosmic joke. I realized that I'd never been one to stand up for myself. I started staying away from home more, distancing myself from the family, but could never quite sever the ties completely. It's almost laughable. When the typhoon came, the people I cared for kicked me to the curb without a second thought. With this second chance, it finally hit me. If they don't appreciate me, why should I even stick around? Lost in my thoughts, I dozed off on the couch. I didn't even notice until a sudden phone call jolted me awake. Glancing at the clock, it was 4 p.m., just an hour away from the typhoon's arrival. My dad's tone was harsh. "You've been out for 4 hours and you're still not at Grandpa's. They're waiting on you to cook. Stop dawdling." I fibbed a bit. "Oh, stopped for gas, grabbed some food, got delayed, almost there." Dad snorted, then added, "And eat less yourself. As a young person, you gotta put elders first. A few scoldings aren't gonna hurt your grandma." I couldn't help but chuckle coldly and agreed. After the call, I pulled up our home surveillance app. My parents ran a small fishery and had built a 5-story house ages ago. Each brother got a floor while I stayed with our parents on the ground floor. Back in the day, with thieves around, Mom had tricked me into paying for home security cameras that now covered every accessible level on every family phone. My brothers claimed to help at the fish pond, but really they just hung around playing poker. Just as I suspected, they were doing nothing but goofing off while others gamed at another table. I shut off the surveillance app and kept refreshing the news for satellite images of the typhoon, closely watching its unpredictable path. The eye of the storm was shifting fast. No wonder the forecast had been off in my past life. My family never bothered with such news. They'd rather play cards or binge on mindless shows. Even if they caught a glimpse of current affairs now and then, they'd only pick up a scrap of survival tips. But that's not my problem anymore. Since the hotel was still taking orders, I rang the front desk and ordered a big seafood feast. The 5-star place was super efficient. A robot delivered the meal within half an hour. I was just about to dig in when my phone rang again. It was Mom. As I casually enjoyed my meal, she anxiously said, "Tess, your grandparents mentioned you're not home yet. Be honest, did you not go? You know you don't have to lie if you don't want to." I munched on a piece of salmon and replied, "Mom, it's not that I didn't want to. I just took a wrong turn earlier. I'm on the right track now. Tell them I'm almost there." She seemed relieved, then hesitated before adding, "Since you took a wrong turn, do you want to come back home first? There's something going on." I was puzzled. I'm almost there. Turning back would have been a nightmare with that typhoon, so I pressed on. She repeated, "You should come back. The storm won't hit for another 2.5 hours, so you've got time." I sighed. "Why do you need me to come back? What's so urgent?" After a pause, Mom admitted, "Your third sister-in-law isn't feeling well and is craving lemon chicken from town. Can you swing by and get some?" I couldn't help but snicker a bit. First time she was pregnant and had all those cravings, and she wouldn't eat anything else. My mom went on about the importance of it, and then my third brother chimed in, "Sis, can you grab some chicken for her since you're driving and it's just a short trip?" I quipped, "Why can't you do it? It's only a 10-minute drive. Is she pregnant with my baby or what?" My brother's annoyance was evident as he snapped, "Tess, what are you saying? It's dangerous out there. What if the typhoon sweeps you away?" I just sighed. "So you're cool with me being the scapegoat, huh?" At that point, I hung up. Didn't want to waste another minute. I figured with that kind of time, he could just draft his will instead of fussing about chicken. My brother kept calling, but I ignored him and switched my phone to Do Not Disturb. After slowly enjoying my feast, I checked the time. Exactly 5 o'clock. The super typhoon should have hit by now. I wondered how things were faring back home. Even in my sturdy hotel room, I could hear the terrifying wind outside. Looking out, it was pure chaos, stuff flying about everywhere. I pulled up our home security camera app to get a peek. The house was a disaster. Even through the screen, you could feel that the wind was far stronger than here. The windows were shaking like crazy, making the furniture sway. My fourth brother, who lived on the top floor, was in a real pickle. His ceiling and windows were leaking badly. But my brothers and sister-in-law didn't seem to notice. They were too busy absorbed in their poker game. My dad was down below trying to mop up water that was seeping through the front door, grumbling and cursing. How could Tess be so heartless? His voice was laced with anger. She didn't even go to help the grandparents, and she didn't bring chicken for your sister-in-law. Who knows where she ran off to? Probably back to her dorm in the city to chill out. Another voice piped up, "Yeah, we're scared stiff here." My eldest sister-in-law added, "What if something happens to Tess in the typhoon since she's not answering her phone?" Mom's face turned worried. During a break from their card game, everyone crowded together for some water and fruit. My second sister-in-law tried to calm everyone down. "No way, Mom. Tess is in a car. She can easily find somewhere safe." But Dad wasn't having it. That stubborn kid, she's just acting out. Why would anyone want a daughter-in-law like her? Mom tried to soothe him. "I'm just worried about her on the road. We've spent over 20 years raising her. It'd be such a shame if something happened just when we were about to get a dowry." Then my third sister-in-law, with a casual tone, added, "It's no big deal, Mom. You don't always need a living person for a dowry." The others stared as she continued with a half-joking remark about ghost marriages and seven-figure dowries. Everyone gasped. My second sister-in-law muttered, "Wow, rich folks really play by different rules. The dowry for a ghost marriage is even higher than for living people." Mom, exasperated, said, "If Tess really got in trouble, it'd be her good fortune." My third brother agreed. "Exactly. Fortunes like that don't come around often. Beats her working as a school teacher for a bit of cash." I couldn't believe it. I'd always thought they sent me out into the storm out of pure selfishness. If I hadn't experienced it firsthand, I couldn't have imagined such twisted intentions. All that talk about scarce food was just a cover. From the start, they had planned to ditch me, hoping to profit off my misfortune with an easy, blood-stained $1 million payday. Apparently, a living person wasn't worth as much as a dead one, and as a girl, I was disposable. It was like, how is that any different from murder? I was both stunned and oddly relieved at the thought of my family's impending downfall. I watched the cameras with a cold smirk as they began scheming on how to spend the money. My eldest sister-in-law looked hopeful. "With $1 million, we could transfer Milo and Jay to a city school, right?" My second sister-in-law nodded. "Yeah, the old man always wanted to switch to an electric car. Jay thinks our van is too old to be seen." My third sister-in-law snickered. "There's a new maternity center in town that's only 10 grand a month. Mom wouldn't have to help with my postnatal care anymore." Mom agreed. With the typhoon hitting the fishing grounds, who knows how much loss there'll be? At least we'd have money for the fourth brother's wedding. By that point, I couldn't take it anymore. I shut off the surveillance. Watching it all unfold was too much. My heart felt numb from the sheer cruelty of it all. Rich lay quietly at my feet, his eyes full of concern. I hugged him, telling myself to hold on a bit longer, that everything would soon be over. But before long, my phone started blowing up again. It was Mom. This time, I answered. Her voice was urgent, not nearly as chipper as before. "Tess, where the heck are you? We can't find you anywhere. Would you come home for a bit? The typhoon's coming. I'm scared to death. The power and water are out, and Milo and Jay are fussing about needing their tablet charged. Could you bring some extra power banks from outside? I have a headache." I almost laughed, thinking, am I supposed to have some kind of superpower against typhoons? They all wanted me to run errands in this mess. With a heavy heart, I replied, "Mom, I heard third sister-in-law wants chicken, so I started heading back, but I've run into the typhoon. My car won't move. Somebody come get me, please. I could practically hear the chaos in her voice. It's so scary. Everything's flying around. There was a pause. Then she asked, You really started heading back? How's your car holding up? I'm at a shelter right now, but I can't hang on for long. I've got a stack of power banks with me. I blurted out desperately, as if I were caught in a real-life disaster movie. My second sister-in-law calmly said, Tess, don't panic. Send your location to my phone and we'll figure out a way to pick you up. I quickly sent over a random highway coordinate. Meanwhile, I could hear someone in the background whisper, With a location, it'll be easier later. Otherwise, we'll have to search everywhere. I couldn't help but smirk at how the storm's chaos didn't faze them. They were more worried about retrieving me than their own safety. I pretended the wind was slamming into me again, then hung up. When they tried calling back, I barely answered as the signal kept cutting in and out. Unable to reach me by phone, they turned to harassing me in the family group chat. Mom bombarded me with a string of 60-second voice messages. Tess, the windows are shaking and water's rising. Come back and help clean up the water. Several windows are shattered and furniture's flying. It's terrifying. Drive back home and rescue something. Our house is nearly a wreck. Hurry back and help, Tess. Another message read, The streets turned into a river and the first floor's already a meter high with water. I'm scared to death. Your brother and his wife have moved up to the fourth floor to play cards and we're stuck on the second. The house won't get submerged, will it? Come on, bring some food at least. Milo and Jay are starving. Other relatives joined in with shocked comments like, Tess went out during a typhoon? Oh my gosh, what's wrong with grown-ups? Sending a kid out like that? Tess must be out of her mind. I quietly replied, No worries, y'all. I'm just taking care of Grandma and Grandpa. My dad then chimed in. You're sending Tess to her death? Is your dad out of his mind? Why aren't your brothers caring for the grandparents? Maybe the criticism was too much because soon my parents broke down and explained that Tess was a good kid who understood that I wasn't well, so I volunteered to take care of Grandma and Grandpa. Besides, when I left, the typhoon was still 7 hours away. How could we have known it had hit early? They said, Yeah, and we told her to come back quickly, but she wouldn't. She's taking shelter somewhere safer. Another voice added, Our house is suffering more than she is. As long as Tess is safe, that's what counts. One of my sister-in-laws, who wasn't playing cards, agreed, You all don't get it. Tess wasn't answering her phone or messages earlier, and we were scared stiff. Our parents are worried about our elders. Then one of the men remarked with a chuckle, The dudes just want to sit and play cards, huh? It'd be too easy if they just kicked the bucket. To cut through the drama, I shot another message. Don't worry, fam. I've figured out a way to dodge the worst of the storm, and we'll be back with supplies soon. After that, the chat fell silent for a bit. I guess they weren't too happy that I'd managed to stay alive. My second sister-in-law awkwardly texted, As long as you're okay. Through the screen, I could practically feel her disappointment. I laughed so hard I almost dropped my phone. There was quiet for a while. Then my mom's voice messages started flying in again, each one more frantic than the last, but she only sent them privately. Her latest plea was nearly in tears. Tess, forget the food. Just come back and get us. The first floor's completely flooded, the roof's about to fly off, and the house is leaking everywhere. We're almost out of options. Your fourth brother's arm got smashed by a falling fan. We need to get him to the hospital. Please, Tess, come get him. I replied coolly, What's stopping you? When I got swept away by the typhoon last time, didn't he do anything? I ignored her. Even though I wasn't seeing it firsthand, I could hear my room's windows rattling nonstop. I thought, Jane, are you really coming to get us, or what? My dad finally snapped. A fine way to raise an ungrateful kid. Are you just going to leave us to die while you're safe? His voice was full of venom. I've played the Hamilton daughter role long enough. Anyone who wants to can go grab any of your brothers. They're all capable enough. The camera shook violently as Mom's terrified face came closer. What about us? Are you just going to watch us die, Tess? How can you be so heartless? You're going to go to hell for not helping your own mom. I chuckled darkly. Didn't Dad always say that life and death are up to fate? Fortune and misfortune are in the hands of heaven. You know what? I'm just a girl. I can only do so much. By the time the video ended, I heard a deafening crash mixed with pained screams. I figured the house had finally collapsed. I switched my phone to airplane mode and decided to ignore their mess until after the typhoon passed. Clutching Rich, I stared blankly at the raging storm outside. The worst of the super typhoon raged on for a full day and night. Floods, collapsed structures, accidents everywhere, making it impossible to step out. Countless old trees were uprooted, houses and public facilities were destroyed, and water and power outages lasted 3 days. Many lost their livelihoods, family members, and even comfortable homes overnight, all because nature's fury showed us how puny we truly are. I felt lucky to be given a second shot at life, and winning that lottery was more than enough. I even planned to help those in need as much as I could. 3 days later, once it was safe to step outside, I left the hotel to grab a change of clothes from my old school dorm, planning to sort out family affairs once the police had a chance to notify me. But just as I was about to leave, I got a call from the hospital saying my relatives were being treated in the city's emergency ward and I should hurry over. I wasn't totally convinced, but I went to the hospital anyway. When I arrived, I was met by my mom's and my eldest sister-in-law's heartbroken cries echoing in the hallway. My heart sank. Could it be that the house hadn't collapsed after all? I waited for a while before walking over. It turned out it was indeed my mom and sister-in-law, with a little boy, probably Milo, sitting nearby. They looked terrible. Disheveled hair, torn clothes, and clearly injured. My mom spotted me, stared for a moment, then rushed over as if to slap me, forgetting her right arm was in a cast. As she raised her hand, it only made her injury worse, and she screamed. My eldest sister-in-law spat at me. "Tess, you heartless person, how dare you show your face? Did a mutt eat your conscience?" Mom, finding her release, collapsed onto the busy hospital floor, bawling, "How unlucky I am raising an ungrateful kid for 25 years. When the typhoon came, you abandoned us and just drove off to some fancy hotel, not caring one bit about those of us at home." She wailed, "Oh man, I've been hit hard. I lost 3 of my 4 sons, and the one remaining has a broken hand. My daughter-in-law and my chubby grandkid are gone, and another daughter-in-law, who was pregnant, miscarried at 5 months. And oh, Grandma got swept away by the flood, and your dad, his legs got crushed by a wall, and now he's paralyzed." She groaned. "I really regret raising a jinx, a total disaster. It's like the world is just unfair, you know? Why wasn't it you who died?" People passing by stopped, shocked by her litany of losses. It was probably one of the saddest stories in the whole disaster zone. Folks looked at her with sympathy, and a few women even tried to help her up. But when they glanced at me, their eyes were filled with disdain, even disgust. After hearing every one of my so-called sins, the doctors wanted to shush her, but her outbursts only made them try to gently calm her down. At that moment, I felt like the worst person on earth, as if I'd somehow been responsible for all this carnage. I couldn't hold back any longer and shouted, "Can someone explain? Does the typhoon listen to me? Did my house collapse and kill my family because I told it to? You all planned to kick me out before the storm hit, right? You said you were scared there wouldn't be enough food and drink during the storm, so you didn't want to take care of me. I left on my own, trying not to make things hard for you." The room fell silent as people began questioning her wild accusations. "I mean, come on. How could a young girl like me cause so much destruction?" My sister-in-law snapped. "So you admit you were lying to us the whole time? That you were safe from the start? You tricked us into driving back to get you. If you hadn't lied, we would have already escaped." I interrupted. "You knew how bad the typhoon was. There's no way you could drive in that mess. Yet you kept asking me to send food and power banks to get people to the hospital. What was your real intention? And can you honestly say you weren't hoping I wouldn't come back?" She was left speechless, mumbling. People around started murmuring, "You can't blame a natural disaster on one person. In bad weather, everyone's just trying to survive." One person even quipped, "Asking a single girl to save the whole family is just too much. Blame it on bad luck." Just then, the emergency room doors burst open, and a grim doctor came out saying, "I'm sorry, we couldn't save the patient's legs. They had to be amputated." Another doctor added, "And I'm sorry, we couldn't save their arms either. It's been 2 or 3 days already, so keeping them wasn't likely." At that moment, Mom fainted, and the doctors rushed to help her. My sister-in-law then barked at me to scram. Not bothered, I turned to leave. But then a nurse, oblivious to what had just happened, started asking for hospital fees. My sister-in-law was livid. Don't you have any decency? After everything our family's been through and you're asking for money? Look at what the typhoon did to our house. Where are we supposed to find cash? She pointed at me just as the elevator doors closed. By the time she realized and tried to catch up, I was already in the parking lot. They'd have to sort out the money on their own. I'd warned them time and again to get medical insurance, but no, they'd rather gamble, hoping to strike it rich. And I decided then that I was done. I cut all ties with them, blocked everyone, bought a few inconspicuous outfits, and quietly cashed in my lottery ticket as soon as the office reopened. I donated $500,000 to help girls in rural areas and another $1 million in supplies to the worst-hit disaster zones. With the remaining cash, I wasn't looking to buy a house. Prices were tanking anyway. Instead, I started planning to study abroad in a field I truly cared about. I might never come back. I'd eventually find a place with a good climate to settle down. I was now managing my own finances, free from the greed of those who'd leech off my luck. Back in my previous life, when I found out I'd won the lottery, I almost couldn't wait to share the news with Mom. But knowing her favoritism, I kept quiet. I even joked, "What would you do if I won $100,000? And she dead seriously replied, "It should be split 5 ways. Mom and Dad get a share, and one for each of your brothers' families." I was floored and asked, "What about me? I won it." Without a second thought, she said, "You were raised by us all these years. Your little salary never repays the favor. Your brothers are the ones staying at home to take care of us old folks. You, being a daughter, won't be around once you're married, so you should do more for the family." That attitude left me speechless and convinced me to never reveal the win. A few days later, when Mom and one of my sisters-in-law couldn't cover the medical bills and showed up at my school begging for money, I'd already resigned after claiming my prize. Working locally after graduation had been their choice, not mine. When they couldn't find me, they resorted to basic calls to the police. When the cops eventually showed up at my nice, furnished apartment where I was studying, the whole family was there. Mom, one of my sisters-in-law, Milo, my brother, Max, my grandpa's helper, and the other sister-in-law, all of them were present. They were shocked by the sight of my upscale pad, their eyes glittering with greed. Even though my dad was in a wheelchair, he still carried that stubborn, old-school vibe. Naturally, he was the first to lose his cool and bark, "Tess, are you even human? When disaster hit, you ran off to have a good time. And now look at the family. Some dead, some crippled. We can't even pay the medical bills, and you just ditched us to live it up. You're worse than an animal." Mom snapped in anger. "Stop the nonsense. People like you have no conscience. Give the hospital $20,000 for the bills, then go meet that widower in town. He lost his wife in the flood a few days ago, and the dowry is $50,000. The cop interjected. "Watch your language. Whether she goes to jail is up to the law. You reported her missing, and now she's found. Let's talk this out." Dad coldly added, "Abandoning family sounds like something out of a cheap video. Maybe it's abandonment, but honestly, our family's a mess." My third sister-in-law paused the recording and said, "Sis, looks like you're living pretty well now. If you had told us you were being kept safe, we could have all shared in it." Mom shot back, "Think about it, this house is worth over $3 million, and you're just asking for $50,000. The first sister-in-law quickly added, "Actually, it's at least $3 million. The family then started bickering over who deserved what, with Oscar, my eldest nephew, and others arguing about cash for treatments and wedding dowries. I rolled my eyes and thought, am I your dad or your mom? Whoever raised you should be responsible. I calmly stated, "Officer, legally, my only obligation is to support them once they're 60. But don't worry, I'll pay exactly what the law requires when the time comes." The police noted everything as domestic squabbles like this usually require mediation. Before long, security arrived. I'd called them earlier because of all this mess. They escorted my family out, cursing my name. I bet they'd lost their marbles completely. They even started a live stream to make money by painting me as the ungrateful daughter. Given the scale of the Typhoon disaster, their sob story quickly won public sympathy. An entire family of ailing elders streaming live ended up blowing up online, attracting tons of sympathy gifts and media attention. But my family, growing cocky and desperate for more money, ramped up their accusations and played the family love card, hoping to benefit from the endless generosity of strangers. They figured that the drama would drag on and the money would keep flowing in. One voice even declared, "Daughter isn't filial, it's our fault for spoiling her." With her leaving, it's understandable. We're hit hard by nature and human cruelty. But if she returns, well, we'll forgive her. Another sister-in-law added, "Sis, as a woman, I say it's good to have family behind you. Visit us if you can." This disguised plea for sympathy actually worked, drawing in the pity of older folks and ramping up the hate directed at me. Even the neighbors began pointing fingers. On a record-breaking day for them, I started my own account to set the record straight. No long speeches, just the full, unfiltered story of that typhoon day. The clincher was the surveillance footage from my phone showing them plotting to kick me out, even in the midst of the storm, all to exploit my misfortune for $1 million payday. Boom! The public opinion flipped, and everyone was stunned by how low they'd stooped. Comments poured in demanding the return of gifts and money. The family tried to resist, but the video was undeniable. Before they could sort themselves out, the platform shut them down and forced them to refund any unwithdrawn gifts. With nowhere left to go, they retreated to Grandpa's old house in the country, facing local scorn. Dad and Grandpa, once proud men, now struggled with shame, lashing out at Mom and my sisters-in-law. The first sister-in-law managed okay with Milo, but the third sister-in-law got blamed for bringing up the whole marriage plot and leaving behind evidence. Frustrated, she tried to sneak away one night, only to get into a fatal accident on the spot. My parents didn't hesitate this time. They went ahead and arranged a posthumous marriage for her to collect the dowry. When her family found out, they trashed Grandpa's place, and he ended up with a heart attack and died. None of this affected my studies or job applications, though. I had solid security at my place. There was just one hiccup. My aunt was out walking the dog when my brother swiped Rich, now renamed Lucky, and demanded $3 million, knowing full well how much Lucky meant to me, even more than any of our own kin. But I wasn't stupid. I called the cops, and because the ransom was so absurd, he ended up getting locked up. In the end, I got accepted into my dream school. With the lottery winnings, I could finish my studies and finally settle somewhere nice. So even though Mom managed to escape the collapsed house, she's been visibly worn out ever since. Taking care of Dad, who's now paralyzed from the waist down, looking after her awkward, dull grandson, and later her fourth son after his stint in prison. I don't know if she regrets it, but she chose her own path. The ones she cares for are the men she holds dear. One day, news broke about my donation. Even though my face was blurred, Mom recognized me right away. Somehow, she'd gotten my number from a friend. My parents called in tears, questioning why I hadn't helped the family after winning the lottery. Mom pleaded for me to come home, promising I'd treat everyone fairly from now on and wouldn't play favorites. I simply asked, "Which home? The one where all I got was a storage room in that 5-story dump?" There was silence after that, and later I left to study abroad with Lucky by my side. I even gave myself a fresh name, Fly, because I wasn't in debt to anyone anymore. I was going to soar free and ride the winds, leaving all that toxic drama behind.